In the heart of West Africa, on the Abomey Plateau, a kingdom was born. Its name carried blood and legend Dahomey. In the belly of Dan, war was not just survival, it was the rhythm of life. Captives filled the markets, the farms, and the rituals of the state. And from the palace walls marched warriors, unlike any in the world, women trained for battle, sworn to the king, feared as the Amazons. For centuries, Dahomey lived by the sword. It rose in conquest, defied empires, and stood proud against the tide of time. But every rise carries a shadow. Greater powers watched, enemies gathered, and the kingdom that burned brightest would one day be tested in fire. In the early 1600s, the Abomey Plateau became the birthplace of Dahomey. Tradition says 3 royal brothers fought for the throne of Alada. One became king, while the other 2 fled. One went southeast and founded Porto Novo. The other, Doaklin, went north and built a new kingdom at Abomey. Doaklin's son, Dakodonu, settled among the Ghezo people. When he asked a local chief named Dan for more land, the chief mocked him, saying he would have to open his belly to make room. Dakodonu killed Dan and built his palace on that very spot. From this, people say the name Dahomey came, meaning in the belly of Dan. The early kings of Abomey built a powerful and centralized state. Haweg-Badja, who ruled from about 1645 to 1685, is seen as the true founder. He built the first royal palace and gave Dahomey its laws and traditions. Society became strict. The king stood above all, with nobles, commoners, and slaves under him. Haweg-Badja created a smart system of rule. Every male official was paired with a female partner who advised and also watched over him. This dual system gave women power in court life. He also enforced laws with severe punishments and introduced a head tax. With this money, he bought European guns to strengthen his army. Armed with muskets, spears, and machetes, Dahomey began to fight its neighbors. Haweg-Badja and his son Akaba, who ruled after him, conquered nearby chiefs like the Ghezo. These victories expanded Dahomey's territory and turned it into a growing force on the plateau. In 1718, Agaja became king. He turned Dahomey into a war state. The goal was simple: expand the land and capture people. Prisoners became slaves or workers for the king. By 1724, Agaja's army took Alada. In 1727, they crushed Wida and seized Savfk. Dahomey now held key ports on the Atlantic. European traders, Portuguese, Dutch, French, British, kept forts there for buying slaves. Control of Alada and Wida made Dahomey rich and feared. Agaja even moved his court south for a time to tighten his grip. The slave coast name spread in Europe. Dahomey was now a major supplier of captives. War brought new customs. Around 1727-1730, Agaja fixed the annual customs called Xwetanu. Each year, people came to Abomey with gifts and tribute. The king led Vodun rites. The army marched in parades. The whole state watched. Human sacrifice became part of these rites. Captives and criminals were killed to honor royal ancestors and gods. Dahomey believed the spirits carried messages through these deaths. It was a covenant of power. European visitors were shocked. One English trader in the 1720s wrote that hundreds of captives died to mark Wida's fall. Later claims spoke of thousands. Dahomey songs and palace art also remembered large numbers at royal funerals and yearly rites. These sacrifices were not random, they were law and ritual. They showed that the king held life and death. They warned enemies that defeat did not end on the battlefield. Agaja also shaped the army. Tradition says Queen Hangbe, before him, formed a palace guard of women. Agaja then used women in real battle. In 1729, some were dressed like men to trick the enemy. The idea worked. These women soldiers were called Mino, our mothers, and also Ahosi, wives of the king. They drilled hard. They were known for courage and order. This was the seed of the force Europeans later called Amazons. By the late 1730s, Dahomey was a true power. It held the slave routes. It kept a standing army with European guns. War and ritual were woven together. The kingdom was rich, proud, and armed. But success had a cost. To the east, the Oyo Empire watched. Oyo had long claimed tribute from Alada and Waida. Dahomey's rise on the coast challenged Oyo's reach. A larger storm was coming. After Agaja's death, Dahomey faced Oyo, the powerful Yoruba Empire. Oyo feared Dahomey's rise and its control of Alada and Waida. In 1740, Tegbesu seized the throne through palace intrigue. Soon after, Oyo attacked. Dahomey's armies fought but were defeated. To survive, Tegbesu agreed to pay tribute. Every year, Dahomey sent slaves, cowries, and guns to Oyo. This tribute was bitter. Dahomey, proud in war, now bowed to another kingdom. Hatred of Oyo grew in the people. Through all this, Dahomey's monarchy stayed firm. Kings ruled with absolute power. Conquered lands were fully absorbed. Local chiefs were replaced or tied by marriage to the royal family. The palace was full of intrigue. Succession often came by force, not by order, yet the system held. By 1818, Dahomey stood ready for change. Ghezo's reign would bring a new dawn. In 1818, Ghezo seized the throne. His first great act was to break free from Oyo. In 1823, his army defeated Oyo in battle. For the first time in a century, Dahomey no longer paid tribute. The victory gave Dahomey pride and freedom. Ghezo celebrated by building up his court, refining his government, and supporting the arts. European visitors spoke of the wealth and ceremony they saw in Abomey. But Ghezo faced new pressure. The slave trade, Dahomey's main wealth, was under attack. Britain banned its trade in 1807 and demanded Dahomey do the same. British warships cruised the coast. Ghezo resisted at first. He said the slave trade was the glory and wealth of his people, yet he saw change was coming. To prepare, he pushed for palm oil farming. Palm oil, used in Europe for soap and machines, became the new trade good. The court split. The elephant faction wanted to keep slave raiding. The fly faction favored peace and palm oil. These fierce debates even shook the annual customs. Ghezo still led wars. He sent his army against Abeokuta, a city of refugees who had escaped Dahomey raids. In 1844, Dahomey attacked but was defeated. Another failed attack came in 1851. Abeokuta had become too strong. In 1851-52, Britain struck directly. Its navy bombarded Waida and blocked the coast. Ghezo was forced to sign a treaty ending the export of slaves in 1852. For a short time, raids and human sacrifices were reduced. But Dahomey's warriors still hungered for war. By 1857, slave raids resumed quietly. Ghezo balanced between the old trade and the new palm oil economy. In 1858, Ghezo was killed, some say, by a sniper from Abeokuta. His death ended an era. He left Dahomey free from Oyo, proud in culture and arms, yet facing an uncertain future. His son Glele would inherit a kingdom caught between tradition and foreign powers. The women warriors of Dahomey were one of the most striking parts of the kingdom. In their own language, they were called Agogie or Mino, meaning our mothers. Outsiders gave them the name Amazons. Their origin goes back to Queen Hangbe in the early 1700s. She briefly ruled as regent and formed a unit of women guards. Later, King Agaja used women in real battles. In 1729, some women dressed as men to surprise the enemy. From then on, they became part of Dahomey's army. At first, they served as guards for the king inside the palace, but their role grew. By the time of King Ghezo in the 1800s, the Amazons were no longer just guards. They were a full military corps. Ghezo increased their training and made them a key part of the army. Recruitment came in many ways. Some were captives taken in war. Some were given as tribute from conquered lands. Others were chosen from among the king's many wives. Even young girls, sometimes only 8 years old, could be sent into training. Life as an Amazon was strict. They took vows never to marry or have children. They lived in royal barracks, away from ordinary people. They were considered the king's wives and bound to him in loyalty. Their training was intense. They learned to march, to fire muskets, to fight hand to hand. They were hardened to pain. One drill forced them to charge through thorn bushes without flinching. This discipline made them fearless. By the mid-19th century, there were between 1,000 and 6,000 Amazons. This was nearly a third of Dahomey's army. They were divided into regiments: riflewomen, archers, huntresses, gunners, and close fighters with short blades. Each regiment had its own uniform and commanders. In battle, they earned a terrifying reputation. Before charging, they sang war songs. One chant declared, "We are no longer women, we are men." It was meant to turn fear into courage. They were often used as shock troops. When wars began, it was the Amazons who led the attack. They threw themselves against enemy lines with machetes and muskets. Their bravery stunned even European officers. During the Franco-Dahomeyan Wars, the Amazons fought with unmatched ferocity. They charged French squares head-on, even against repeating rifles and machine guns. Many were cut down, but they did not retreat. French soldiers later admitted they had never faced women who fought with such courage. The Amazons were not only fighters. Their senior officers advised the king and sat in the royal council. They often pushed for trade and peace rather than endless war, especially in debates about Abeokuta and palm oil. Their voices influenced state decisions. After Dahomey fell in 1894, the Amazons were disbanded. Many returned to ordinary life, though they never forgot their service. Their legend lived on in stories and songs. One of the last Amazons, a woman named Nawi, lived until 1979. She said she had fought the French in 1892. Through her, the memory of the sisterhood survived nearly into modern times. When King Ghezo died in 1858, his son Glele became king. He inherited the army, the Amazons, and the traditions of his father's rule. One of Glele's first goals was to defeat Abeokuta, the Egba city that had resisted Dahomey for years. In 1864, he led a massive assault. Thousands of warriors marched, Amazons at the front. But the attack ended in disaster. The Egba defenders had European rifles, cannons, and strong walls. The Dahomeyans charged again and again, but were cut down. Many Amazons died. The defeat broke Dahomey's dream of conquering Abeokuta. It also closed off a major source of slaves. Without captives from the Egba lands, Dahomey could no longer rely on slave raiding as before. Glele turned to palm oil. Plantations spread across the kingdom. Farmers also grew corn and other crops. Palm oil was shipped to Europe, where it was used for soap and machines. But palm oil never brought as much wealth as the slave trade. The royal treasury grew weaker. The grand ceremonies of Abomey continued, but with less gold and splendor. At the same time, France moved closer. In 1863, they declared Porto Novo a protectorate. In 1878, they secured Cotonou. These ports drained trade away from Whydah, Dahomey's old hub. By the late 1800s, Whydah's markets were collapsing. Dahomey was being squeezed between European powers and rival kingdoms. Still, Glele stood defiant. He styled himself as the Lion King, a ruler ready to fight for his land. At the annual customs, he continued the old ways, including sacrifices of captives, to show that the kingdom's spirit had not broken. He also built and decorated palaces in Abomey. Their walls were carved with the symbols of Dahomey's victories and its kings. Oral historians sang of past battles, keeping the memory alive. Yet behind the pride, the kingdom was weakening. Trade was slipping, enemies were stronger, and European expansion was tightening its grip. When King Glele died in 1889, his son Behanzin became king. He was bold, proud, and refused to submit to France. But France was now a powerful colonial force on the coast. By this time, France had already taken Porto Novo and claimed Cotonou. Dahomey resisted these losses. Tension quickly rose. In 1890, the First War began. Dahomey soldiers raided a French-protected village and mocked France by wrapping a severed chief's head in the French flag. The insult could not be ignored. Behanzin struck first. In March, thousands of warriors, including Amazons, attacked the French fort at Cotonou. They charged at dawn with muskets and machetes. The French fought back with machine guns and artillery. Hundreds of Dahomeyans died. The survivors regrouped. In April, Behanzin sent 9,000 men to Porto Novo. At Achokpa, French troops stood in tight squares and fired steady volleys. The Dahomeyans rushed forward but were driven back. Over 1,000 were killed. Defeated, Behanzin signed a treaty. He gave Cotonou to France and accepted Porto Novo as French. But he did not give up. He began buying modern rifles from British and German traders, preparing for another fight. In 1892, the Second War erupted. Dahomey warriors raided villages under French protection. France responded with a full invasion under General Dodds. The French advanced up the Ueme Valley, avoiding Dahomey's main defenses. They cut down sacred trees to shake Dahomey's spirit and used spies to track movements. Battles followed at Dogba, Pogessa, and Kena. Dahomey's men and Amazons charged bravely with cutlasses and clubs, but the French rifles and bayonets slaughtered them. Thousands of Dahomeyans were killed. In November 1892, the French reached Abomey. Rather than let them take it, Behanzin ordered the capital burned. The royal palaces went up in flames. He fled north with a small band of fighters. France placed his half-brother Agoli Agbo as a puppet king, but Behanzin tried to resist from the countryside. His army, however, was broken. In 1894, Behanzin surrendered. He was sent into exile, first to Martinique and then Algeria, where he died in 1906. The proud kingdom of Dahomey was no longer free. With Behanzin gone, France moved fast. Dahomey was declared a protectorate, then a colony. The coast had already been taken. now the whole kingdom was absorbed. France kept Agoli Agbo as a puppet king in Abomey, but real power lay with French officers. In 1899, when Agoli Agbo refused a new poll tax, the French exiled him. The monarchy was abolished. By 1904, Dahomey became part of French West Africa. The old ruling families were given small posts as district chiefs under the French. The structures of Dahomey, its councils, its military system were broken and replaced. The annual customs were banned. Human sacrifice was outlawed. The Amazons were disbanded, their weapons taken away. The kingdom that once struck fear was gone. After decades of French rule, Dahomey gained independence in 1960. The new nation even took the old kingdom's name, Republic of Dahomey. In 1975, it was renamed Benin to reflect wider roots. The royal palaces of Abomey still stand, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Their walls and carvings tell the story of the kings and the Amazons. Vodun, once the kingdom's spiritual core, is still practiced in Benin today. Annual festivals honor the same deities once served in Dahomey, though without the sacrifices of the past. The bravery of the Amazons and the strength of kings like Ghezo and Behanzin remain symbols of pride. Their story inspires books, films, and ceremonies. Though the kingdom fell, its spirit endures in Benin's culture, in its people, and in the memory of a land that once stood tall against empires. The fires of Abomey burned, but the spirit of Dahomey did not die. Its kings fell, its Amazons disbanded, yet its memory lived on in the songs of the people, in the carvings of the palaces, in the pride of a nation reborn. From the ashes of conquest, Dahomey became legend, and its story lives on. If you want more untold histories like this, subscribe to the channel History of Ancestor and join us as we bring the past back to life.